Right now, as you're listening to this, your brain is having approximately 6,000 thoughts per day. But here's what neuroscientists recently discovered that will fundamentally change how you think about concentration. Only 12 of those thoughts actually determine whether you'll achieve superhuman focus or remain trapped in mental mediocrity forever. The human mind processes information at approximately 11 million bits per second, yet we can only consciously attend to about 40 bits at any given moment. This staggering ratio reveals something profound about the nature of focus. It's not about controlling everything your mind encounters, but about masterfully directing the internal narrative that governs what captures and holds your attention. When we examine individuals who demonstrate what appears to be superhuman focus, from chess grandmasters who can maintain concentration during 14-hour tournaments to surgeons who perform intricate operations lasting entire days, we discover they all share one critical characteristic. It's not superior genetics, enhanced caffeine tolerance, or even exceptional training regimens. Instead, they've developed what cognitive psychologists term metacognitive awareness of internal dialogue, the ability to consciously observe, evaluate, and redirect the ongoing conversation between different aspects of their consciousness. This internal dialogue, which most people experience as that constant stream of thoughts, judgments, and mental commentary, operates as either the greatest ally or the most formidable enemy to sustained attention. The difference between these two outcomes lies entirely in how we've trained ourselves to engage with this mental chatter. Those who achieve remarkable focus have learned to transform their self-talk from a chaotic broadcast of distractions into a precision instrument of cognitive control. Consider this fundamental question. When you sit down to engage in deep work, who exactly is doing the focusing? Most people assume it's a singular, self-exerting willpower over distracting thoughts. But phenomenological investigation reveals something far more complex and ultimately more empowering. Your consciousness operates more like a committee than a monarchy, with different mental voices competing for executive control of your attention. The voice that says, "I should check my phone," operates from a different neurological network than the voice that responds, "No, I need to stay focused on this task." Understanding this multiplicity of mental voices isn't just philosophical curiosity, it's the foundation of attentional mastery. When you recognize that focus isn't about silencing all mental activity but about establishing clear hierarchy among these various internal voices, you gain access to levels of concentration that most people consider impossible. Dr. Elena Vazquez, a neuroscientist studying attention at Stanford's Cognitive Enhancement Laboratory, has demonstrated through neuroimaging studies that individuals capable of sustained focus for extended periods show distinct patterns of self-referential brain activity. Rather than experiencing constant internal conflict between competing mental voices, they demonstrate what she calls unified intentionality, a state where different aspects of consciousness align toward a single objective. This alignment doesn't occur naturally. It requires deliberate cultivation of what ancient philosophers called the inner dialogue, and what modern cognitive science terms self-talk optimization. The quality of your internal conversation directly determines the quality of your attention. When your self-talk operates as a supportive coach rather than a critical judge, when it provides gentle guidance rather than harsh commands, your brain's attentional networks function with remarkable efficiency. But here's where most approaches to improving focus go astray. They attempt to eliminate distraction rather than transform the relationship between different aspects of consciousness. True superhuman focus emerges not from the absence of mental activity but from the presence of skillfully directed internal dialogue. Rachel Morrison, a graduate student researching quantum physics at MIT, found herself trapped in what she described as attention purgatory. Despite her intellectual capabilities, she could barely maintain focus for 20 minutes before her mind began generating cascading waves of self-critical commentary. Her internal dialogue had become dominated by what cognitive scientists call metacognitive interference, thoughts about thinking that hijack the very cognitive resources needed for sustained attention. Rachel's breakthrough came when she began treating her internal voices not as problems to be solved but as different aspects of consciousness that could be trained to work collaboratively. Instead of fighting against thoughts like, "This is too difficult," or "I'll never understand this concept," she learned to respond with what she called cognitive companionship, a form of self-talk that acknowledged difficulties while maintaining commitment to the process. The transformation occurred over several weeks as Rachel developed what philosophers call the observer self, the aspect of consciousness capable of witnessing mental activity without being consumed by it. This observer self operates like a skilled conductor coordinating different sections of an orchestra. It doesn't eliminate the various mental voices but directs them toward harmonious expression rather than chaotic noise. What makes Rachel's case particularly illuminating is how her approach addressed the root cause of attention fragmentation, the adversarial relationship most people develop with their own mental processes. When your internal dialogue operates from a foundation of self-trust rather than self-criticism, when it approaches challenges with curiosity rather than judgment, your attentional resources naturally consolidate around your chosen focus. This principle connects to broader questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If attention is the currency of consciousness, the mechanism through which we allocate our mental resources, then mastery of internal dialogue represents perhaps the most practical form of self-development. You're not just improving your ability to concentrate. You're fundamentally restructuring the relationship between different aspects of your own awareness. Recent advances in neuroplasticity research have revealed something remarkable about how self-talk patterns literally reshape brain structure. When you consistently engage in supportive internal dialogue, you strengthen neural pathways in the prefrontal cortex while simultaneously reducing hyperactivity in the default mode network, the brain region associated with mind-wandering and self-referential thinking. Dr. Michael Thompson's research at the Attention Research Institute has demonstrated that individuals who practice what he terms constructive self-dialogue show increased gray matter density in areas associated with sustained attention within just 8 weeks of consistent practice. More fascinating still, these structural changes correlate directly with improvements in what cognitive scientists call attention span flexibility, the ability to maintain focus for varying durations depending on task demands. This neuroplasticity principle operates on a simple but profound mechanism. Every time you respond to a distracting thought with gentle redirection rather than harsh self-criticism, you reinforce neural circuits associated with cognitive control while weakening circuits associated with rumination and self-attack. Your brain, in essence, learns to trust its own capacity for sustained attention rather than constantly questioning and undermining it. Consider how this plays out in practical terms. When a distracting thought arises during deep work, perhaps, "I wonder what's happening on social media," most people either immediately succumb to the distraction or generate secondary thoughts of self-judgment like, "Why can't I focus?" or "I'm so undisciplined." Both responses fragment attention by creating additional layers of mental activity. The alternative approach involves what philosophers call mindful acknowledgement without identification. You notice the distracting thought, acknowledge its presence without judging it as problematic, and then consciously redirect attention back to your chosen focus. This might sound like, I notice the urge to check social media, and I'm choosing to return my attention to this project because it aligns with what I value most right now. This subtle shift in internal dialogue activates entirely different neural networks than those involved in self-criticism or distraction following. Over time, these networks become your brain's default response to attentional challenges, creating what appears to outside observers as effortless, superhuman focus. The first strategy involves developing what I call meta-attention, the ability to observe your attention patterns without disrupting them. This requires cultivating a gentle, curious relationship with your own mental processes. When you notice your focus beginning to drift, instead of immediately forcing attention back to your task, spend a few seconds observing the quality of your internal dialogue. Is it judgmental or accepting? Rushed or patient? This brief moment of self-awareness often naturally guides attention back to your chosen focus while simultaneously training your capacity for metacognitive observation. The second strategy centers on intentional self-talk initialization. Before beginning any focused work session, spend 60 seconds establishing the internal dialogue tone you want to maintain throughout the session. This might involve statements like, I'm approaching this task with patience and curiosity, or I trust my ability to work through challenges as they arise, or my attention naturally returns to this work because it matters to me. This initialization process essentially programs your subconscious mental commentary to support rather than undermine your focusing efforts. The third strategy involves what cognitive psychologists call distraction dialogue transformation. Instead of treating distracting thoughts as enemies to be defeated, you learn to engage with them as information about your current mental state. When the thought, "This is boring," arises, you might respond internally with, "I notice I'm experiencing some restlessness right now. What would help me reconnect with why this work matters?" This approach transforms potential attention hijackers into opportunities for deeper self-understanding and motivation clarification. The fourth strategy focuses on cognitive stamina building through internal support. Most people attempt to extend their focus duration through willpower alone, which inevitably leads to mental exhaustion. Instead, you can develop internal dialogue patterns that actually energize attention rather than depleting it. This involves learning to speak to yourself during challenging moments the way you would encourage a close friend facing a difficult task, with warmth, understanding, and confident belief in their capabilities. The fifth strategy involves attention recovery protocols. Even with optimal internal dialogue, attention will occasionally fragment. Rather than viewing these moments as failures, you can develop specific self-talk patterns for quickly and kindly returning to focused states. This might involve phrases like, "My attention wandered," which is completely normal, and now I'm choosing to return to my work with fresh energy. The speed and gentleness of these recovery protocols often determine whether brief attention lapses become extended periods of distraction. The journey towards superhuman focus ultimately represents a shift from unconscious to conscious participation in your own mental processes. Most people live at the mercy of whatever internal dialogue happens to arise spontaneously, never realizing they possess the capacity to consciously shape these mental conversations. This realization alone can be transformative. You are not a passive recipient of your thoughts but an active participant in their generation and direction. This principle connects to deeper questions about human potential and self-development. When you master the art of supportive internal dialogue, you don't just improve your ability to focus, you fundamentally alter your relationship with challenge, difficulty, and growth itself. Tasks that once seemed impossible become approachable. Projects that previously generated anxiety begin to evoke curiosity and engagement. The quality of your attention becomes a reflection of the quality of your self-relationship. What makes this approach particularly powerful is its immediate applicability. You don't need special equipment, optimal environmental conditions, or extended training periods to begin transforming your internal dialogue. The very next time you sit down to engage in focused work, you can experiment with speaking to yourself more kindly, more patiently, more supportively. Notice how this shift in internal tone affects not just your attention span but your overall experience of the work itself. The research suggests that individuals who develop mastery over their internal dialogue don't just achieve superior focus. They report higher levels of life satisfaction, reduced anxiety around challenging tasks, and increased confidence in their ability to tackle complex projects. These benefits emerge naturally from the practice of treating yourself as someone worthy of kind, supportive internal communication rather than harsh, critical self-judgment. As you begin implementing these approaches, remember that transformation of deeply ingrained mental patterns requires patience and consistency rather than dramatic overnight changes. Each moment of conscious, supportive self-talk strengthens neural pathways associated with attentional mastery while gradually weakening patterns of self-criticism and mental distraction. The ultimate goal isn't to achieve perfect focus in every moment but to develop a skillful, compassionate relationship with your own attentional processes. When you approach your mental activity with curiosity rather than judgment, with patience rather than frustration, you create internal conditions that naturally support sustained concentration and meaningful engagement with whatever work matters most to you. Thank you for taking this journey into the science and philosophy of superhuman focus. If these insights resonated with you and you'd like to continue exploring how to transform your internal dialogue for enhanced attention and life satisfaction, please subscribe for more evidence-based